Hi there, it's Ms. Nowakowski coming to you from the studio at Grower Elementary in the Richmond School District. I have another weaving project for you. This is circle weaving, and it's just using a recycled box from my recycling, and I traced a circle. You could use a bowl or a plate and trace a circle onto the cardboard, cut it out, and then I'm going to show you in the video how to add the different notches and a little hole in the middle, and then add string to make a loom. So instead of a vertical loom, it's a circular loom, but these are still your warp threads. They're just taped to the back here. You could also use a paper plate. If you have a paper plate, a small one or a large one. Now these looms can be any size, but you might want to start with a smaller one to start. And you can either leave it on the cardboard. I think it looks lovely like this. Or if you want to take it off and tie off the warp threads, I'll show you how to do that as well. So the first thing we're going to do is create a loom. If you have a paper plate, you can just use that, a circular paper plate. But you can also use cardboard. I took this out of my recycling box. And on the back side here, I'm going to just trace a circle. I'm going to trace it down on this end so I can maybe get 2 circles from this. And I'm doing it on the back side because on that brown side there, I might want to add, I could paint it, add some color, etc. So I'm just going to cut this out now into a circle, and then I'll show you how to make the notches to add your loom. Okay, so here's my circle. And again, I'm going to mark it on the back side. This is a relatively small circle, so I'm going to do 9 notches on this. If you make a bigger circle, like anything bigger than a dinner plate, you probably want 11 or 13 or 15. It needs to be an odd number. And that's a little tricky to do on this. So for 9 notches, there's 2 ways you can think about this. If you want to be really exact and measure, you could get a compass and a protractor out. We know that the measurement around a circle is 360 degrees. And if you divided that by 9, each section would measure 40 degrees in terms of its angle. So you could do it that way. I'm just going to visualize though, and I know that 3 times 3 is 9. So I am going to visualize and just divide this into what I think is about 9 equal sections. I'm just going to turn it to see maybe this one can be a little bit smaller there. So I'll just put a little dot there to know that that's that one. Now within each section, then I need to divide it into 3 visually. So 1, 2, 3, and this one, 1, 1, 2, 3, and this one, 1, 2, 3. So now I've got 9 sections marked. And again, same thing if you're doing a paper plate, you could just mark on the back, and then we're going to cut out our notches. So to cut out the notches, you just make a little V or a little triangle where you've drawn each of those little hash marks or lines. And this is where you'll secure your yarn. So you can see I've got 2 there. And I just keep going around until I've got all 9 done around my circle. Okay, and another thing we have to do is we have to find the center mark. And I could measure that exactly by drawing ruler lines across. And where they all intersect at the center is the center of the circle. But I'm just going to visualize. Again, this doesn't have to be super exact. I'm going to draw my little dot on the back. And then I'm just going to use the tip of my scissors. You could also use a pencil. And I'm just going to poke a little hole right through the circle because we're going to push a piece of yarn through that. So it has to be wide enough to be able to push a piece of yarn through. And again, you could paint the background of this. This will be the background to your weaving. So you could do a design if you want, or just a color, or sky and ground, whatever you like. Okay, to get started on wrapping my loom, I've cut a piece of string that's about 2 meters long. If your circle's longer, your string will need to be longer. So 3 or 4 meters, depending on the size. I'm taking one and just putting it through a notch here, taking the string, putting it through one notch, and I'm just going to tape it down on the back just to secure it so it doesn't get in the way and it doesn't pop out. Okay, so that's how we get started. Okay, so this one's up here at the top. So I'm going to almost across to the bottom here. It's not exactly across, but you can see that it's got 1, 2, 3 notches to the right. So that's the side I'm going to use, and I'm going to go behind this tab here, not looping all the way around, just behind the tab. And then I'm going to go across here, and then go behind that one. Go across again, go behind, go across, and go behind. And now, this part here, so I'm going to cross this over, and it doesn't have another notch to go to. I'm just going to cut the string a little bit, okay? And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to push this string under all these other strings here. And I'm just going to pull that. See how I'm pulling those strings so that it centers more over where we've got that little center hole. I'm just trying to pull these all over, move this over a little bit more so that I get them close to where that center is. There we go. And now I'm going to take this string and I'm going to push it through that hole. Okay, so this is a little tricky to push this string down through that hole. Again, if you have a needle, you could use that, or the end of your scissors. I'm just using my pen here, seeing if that will get it through. No, this isn't working so well right now. I'm just going to be persistent and keep trying to push it through so that I can see some ends on the other side that I can grab. There we go. See, it's coming through. And I'm going to pull that through. Make sure that that's nice and tight on the front. And I'm going to trim this a little bit here and then tape this down as well. And there's the back of the loom. And now you can see that we're ready to go with our weaving on the front of the loom here. So once you've got your loom ready to go, you need to decide what you're going to weave in it. It could be yarn or string or ribbon or wool or strips of fabric. And you can either just do a random design with what you have, or you could intentionally plan a repeating pattern or a different kind of pattern. Here's one example of weaving that I did, and I just used some favorite colors that I had. I just used some light blue yarn and then some darker blue macrame cord and some purple wool, and then finished with some gray wool around the outside. So you can see on this circle here, this circle loom I've just started with the gray in the center, and it's just an over under weave. Again, you could try some 2 over 1 under, 2 over 1 under and see what that does. But I've tried to just weave a tight coil here in the center. So I'll show you how to tie on the yarn and get started with your weaving. Okay, I've cut off about 2 meters of yarn to get started, and I'm just going to actually start by tying the yarn onto one of these warp threads here. You probably only need to do a single knot as long as you do it pretty tight, and you can push it towards the center as best you can, and then you'll tuck in that end piece after you've done a bit of weaving. Now this is quite long and is going to get all tangled if you leave it like that, so I just take my fingers like this and wrap them into a little bundle, wrap up that long piece of yarn, and then I use that to do my weaving with. Okay, so we'll start here right where we've tied it on, and I'll go over the first one, and then you have to push these under the next one. It's a little bit cumbersome at the beginning, and it gets easier. Over, so then this one is under. Pull those through. So this one is over, so the next one is under. And you just keep pulling it into the center, over and under, and you can do a looser weave or a tighter weave. Depends sort of what effect you have. And see, then now we've got this one. We're just going to ignore that. Keep that little tab behind there and just go over it. So the next one is over and then under. And we've gone all the way around the circle now. You can see I'm pulling it into that little coil in the center. So I'm just going to keep going over and under for a bit here, and we'll see what it looks like. Okay, so I'm just going to cut this little end off here and then tuck that under the circle that I created in the center. And now I want to add a new color. So I just take my 2 pieces of yarn and I tie a knot with the two. I just pull that nice and tight and pull off these cut off these extra ends here just so it's not too thick. And then I can just continue weaving. So again, I'll wrap this around, and you could tie a piece of yarn to a piece of ribbon or a piece of fabric. And again, I just continue doing over under as I add this new color, and it's just going to take a little while for the orange to show and me to finish the gray there. I keep going over and under, and then I'm going to make sure that when I wrap it around again, see that knot is sticking up there, and I'm just going to want to make sure that I tuck the knot under so that it doesn't show as much. Maybe I'll need to go around one more time and sort of tuck it under the next row. But you can see that you can create a different pattern. You could do a repeating pattern, gray, orange, or different types of patterns by adding different colors. Okay, so I've got this strip of fabric here, and I'm just going to tie it on to this yarn. Again, I'm just putting them side by side. This is one way I do it. And then just make a little loop with my finger and then pull both through that loop. And pull it tight. Try and get as small as a knot as you can so that it doesn't make too much of a bump in your weaving, and just trim off the ends a little bit there. Okay, then I'm just gonna wind up my fabric strips and then continue weaving. So under, over, under, and again, you kind of just get into a rhythm of doing this. I find it helps to rotate the loom. And again, I'm going to pull this now to get these in place. And again, you can see that knot is sticking up, and I can just tuck it under. And again, as I go around, that'll be held into place. Okay. Over, under. Make sure I pull through the ends there. I'm twisting this a bit, as you can see, as I'm doing over and under, just to get a bit more what's called dimension or texture with this. Over, under. Over, under. And then I'm just going to tie on some gray to do a final kind of couple more rounds here. And then I'll show you how to tie off the ends. So again, just going to tie my yarn, do a little loop, push those two pieces through, and pull it tight there. And then bundle this up, and I'll keep weaving my gray around the circle. Okay, you could probably do a couple more loops around, but I'm just going to show you again how to tie off. You just take your last piece of string or yarn, go around one of those work wefts, but then go backwards instead of going under the next one. So come back under and pull it, not too tight, and then tie a knot. Okay, that's the end there. And then again, you can either clip it a little bit longer like that so that you can tuck it under, or you can cut it really close and then the knot will just be the end. Now, you can either leave this on your loom, leave it on the background, and that's why you may want to paint it. But if you would like to take it off, you can clip these pieces of string here and then tie them on the back. So for example, here I see these two pieces here, and I can lift them off of that tab here to the front. And I can cut them in half like that, and then tie a double knot to secure them so that things don't come undone. And then this one also is the same. Take it off of its tab. Cut in half and tie them. And just keep doing that. Okay, I've tied off all the ones I can, and then I'm going to take the tape off the two pieces of string that are on the back. So this piece is loose here, and then I'm going to just gently make sure that I pull that there. And then I'm going to tie these together on the back here, just to secure those two pieces. Don't pull it too tight because you don't want to pull in all your weaving. And then just again, because you've done a double knot, that's quite secure. And I can trim all these extra pieces here too, pretty close to where those knots are. I can trim some of these extra pieces, just sort of tidy this up. And again, you can see if you made this with a much larger circle, you could have quite a large mat. I know one teacher who did this with hula hoops with her class. So they made quite large circle weavings. There we go. There's our final little circle mat.